There's a problem that runs in my family. We don't know how to stop working. My parents were in poverty for most of my childhood, not for lack of hard work, but for their unprofitable choices in careers. Oops, I got that gene too. Growing up poor etches a sense of scarcity into your bones. You never really feel secure. There's always a famine right around the corner, so every minute of every day must be put to good use or you'll die. This mentality kicks into overdrive when you're self-employed. I quit my last 9-to-5 job 15 years ago, the very moment I cashed my first Warm Bodies check, and I never want to go back to that life. But one thing I do miss is the ability to clock out, to leave the office and switch over to life mode. Apparently they have these things called weekends where you stop answering emails and enjoy non-work activity for 2 days. For me, out here in a shed in the wilderness, working on 4 major writing jobs and 3 social media platforms in a constant effort to keep a career going while also trying to build a homestead out of a patch of bare land, this free time you speak of feels like fantasy. If I finish a task, hooray, now I get to start the next task, and all the tasks after that slide 1 inch down the conveyor belt, fresh from the task machine that never turns off. There is no end to this. This is not something that ends. Even with a nice clean 9-to-5, you may still find the task machine waiting for you after work with household chores and errands and stuff you could be improving. But I believe there's another side to the human experience that needs to be respected. There is softness, quiet, rest, and release. There's pleasure, indulgence, the enjoyment of our bodies as they move through the world, touching and tasting, talking and listening, just being for the sake of being, without any purpose at all. This side of life is airy and fragile. It's easily trampled by the solid bulk of practicalities, the primal logic of building, growing, surviving. You can always be doing something useful unless you make yourself stop. The only way to let that soft experience thrive is to create a space for it, raise a fence around it, and defend it like a garden against the hungry animal in your head. I've been struggling with this for a long time, and living alone in the wilderness has actually made it harder. Yes, there are fewer distractions, but there are more tasks than ever, and with no one around to drag me out for good times, it's all too easy to leave the task machine running all day, every day. So I'm going to try something new to retrain my brain. I'm going to consciously partition my mind into 2 distinct modes, focus and free. And I'm going to use actual physical totems to remind myself which mode I'm in. Every morning when I sit down to write or whatever other project demands focus, I'll snap on my focus cuff. I'll feel it on my wrist, and every time I look down, my mind will register the color and the lettering and will confirm with itself that I'm working, that this is the time for discipline, and it's okay to keep straining because it knows this isn't a forever state. Now there's a clearly marked clock out. And when that clock out comes, a decision I'll now be forced to make consciously every day, I'll take off focus and snap on free. I'll feel the softer, unfinished leather and see the lighter color. I'll rub my thumb over the lettering, and my frenzied brain will receive a multi-sensory rush of confirmation. It's time to rest. It's time to leave the zone, to release the grip and relax into simpler pleasures. Anytime I start to feel that poor man's guilt, why am I standing around watching the sunset when I could be improving something? I'll just glance at my wrist and remember, this is free time. I consciously chose this after a long day of focus, so I'm allowed to enjoy it. My hope is to train myself like Pavlov's dogs. Each cuff will trigger its own set of thought processes that will eventually become instinctive. I'll stop being harassed by intrusive thoughts when I'm out with friends or on vacation or just trying to enjoy a movie with my dinner, because the cuff will be a reminder that I have permission to do this, that it's okay to just exist for a while and let the future blur, because there's structure for this now. I won't slide into lazy oblivion the moment I relax my grip, lost in a fog of undifferentiated time. I have focus in my pocket, and I'll put it back on tomorrow. I've been discovering lately how much I need rituals. Being a single man living alone and entirely self-employed, I have very little structure in my life. but not in an easy breezy way. Self-employment just means I make less money and get taxed twice as much on it. I have just as many voices screaming at me about deadlines and budgets and appointments, it's just that they're all in my head. Without that external structure, it's very easy for everything to blur together into a noisy cloud of vague anxiety that makes it impossible to enjoy my life. I'm slowly building that structure out of my own little daily rituals. I have my morning music, pressing play on my little speaker and feeling the shed fill with color as I make my coffee and breakfast. I have my lunch walk across the ridge and my evening walk through the plains. I have my little outdoor gym sessions right before dinner. I take a squirt of honey as a promise to my grumbling stomach, another little Pavlovian trigger. And now, I have these totems to physically mark the transition from workday to playtime. And maybe someday, I'll have a solid enough structure that I can just flow through life, enjoying every moment for its own unique flavor, bitter or sweet, knowing they all have their place. P.S. I swear this is not just an elaborate justification for me to start wearing jewelry, though I have to admit, these do look pretty damn cool. I'm especially excited to watch the free cuff's natural leather develop its patina, knowing that the darker and glossier it gets, the more pure enjoyment I've enjoyed, and that every dent and scratch is something that happened while I was happy.